So what I wanted to talk with you about is a couple of things. You talk about your three system
Yeah.
approach, like kind of that's the thing that you're really going to be focusing on this course that launches are those three systems. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's back end, marketing and branding, and sales, right?
Correct.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yes.
So I definitely want to dig into that kind of why you see those as the three main systems, how they are at, kind of apart from each other, but also what those bridges between the three things looks like. And then I also need to talk about the name of this course
Yeah.
because isn't it like strategic AF?
Heck yeah, it is.
I am so excited about that. Like, that makes me so happy. I
Me
saw
too.
that
I'm glad.
I saw that
So
come over. I
glad.
was like, oh yes, yes, that is yes, 1,000 times yes. So
Yes.
it needs to come up. I mean, it will because that's what we're talking about today. But
Yep.
it
Yeah.
made me so happy when I read that. I was like, oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, cool. So yeah, let's kick it off like this.
Yeah.
Megan, hello. Thank you
Hey,
for joining me today.
thank you so
Uh,
much.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you based out of? What's your deal, both in photography and on the education side of things?
Yeah, so I am in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I have a portrait studio here in Minneapolis. And I've had this studio for, gosh, like 17 or 18 years. So I'm in like the
Nice.
North Loop district in Minneapolis. So if you know anything about Minneapolis, it's kind of like the up and coming area. So it's kind of fun
Nice.
that I've been like anchored in here. I started when it was like a scary place to be, and now it's like a destination.
Perfect.
So it's
Perfect.
pretty awesome. I love this place so much. I feel like it's the reason I've stayed so long is because I've got great landlords. Everything is just awesome here. I've been in business for 20 years. I started my
You're like a
business.
unicorn,
I know.
a photography business
I
unicorn.
know.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so passionate about this because it's so like it can be whatever you want it to be, but it can also be really rewarding and really like, you know, satisfying, and it can provide you such a good life if you just learn like the systems and like what you need
Yes.
to know to make it last. So
Yes.
yeah, so that's why I'm here to preach about this, because I'm living proof. Like I can do it, you can do it, anyone can do it. If I can do it, anyone can do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but yeah,
That's awesome.
but
And
I
so I see a bunch of like newborns and some families and stuff.
yeah.
Is that really like your niche?
Yeah, I would say my niche is just portraits in general. I do, this is my sales room. So this is like where I host all of my appointments with my people for them to look at their images. So I have all of my stuff on display. With my families, I'm always selling like, artwork, frames, canvases, albums. And then I do also a lot of personal branding work with entrepreneurs and, just helping them get really clear on their branding strategies and their marketing strategies as well. So that also kind of ties in with this whole systems is like it's such an important piece,
Yeah.
and all of it needs to tie in together. So I help entrepreneurs. I feel like my whole career has been like one thing begets the other. Like I started with weddings,
Yeah.
and then everybody gets married and has babies. So then I'm like, ooh, portraits are awesome. And then I'm doing all these families, and now the kids are growing up. Now I'm doing like, older kids too. And then all of a sudden the parents are like, do you do this? Do you do this? And, for to help
Right.
them in their career. So I'm like, it's just been like a beautiful like flow of like just working with people and, at whatever stage they're at in their life. So
Yeah. That's awesome. That's
yeah.
awesome. So you talk about systems and processes, and I know that you like to break things into three kind of pillars of systems. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that there are three systems that every photographer needs that will just kind of take you out of the overwhelm of having a photography business that you feel like you don't have much control over, or you're kind of at the whim of when people want to schedule, to getting you to the place where you can trust it. Like you trust that your business is there for you.
Yeah.
It's going to do what it needs to do so that you can like have a life and, do all the things that
Yeah.
regular people with 9 to 5 jobs do.
Yeah.
So
Normal people. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, normal people, right? So the three systems are, the back end. I call it the back end basics. So it's everything that goes on behind the scenes that nobody sees or knows about. Like if our clients knew how much work we put into photography and like what really goes into it, I mean, we'd be paid as much as like doctors, right? Like
Right,
it's
right.
kind of like, so all of that back end stuff just needs, a light shed on it, because I feel like it's often overlooked, and it's often something that, people kind of dismiss because it's a little on the mundane side. It's not as exciting.
Right.
It's not as sexy. It's kind of boring, but you need to like have a plan in place and how to implement it all, because otherwise it gets forgotten, and then you're missing things, and you're like, I have too much to do, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you say those are things like client management,
Yes.
just basic accounting, bookkeeping type stuff, and
Absolutely.
then like the software and tools like that support just the basic workflow of getting somebody through your business?
Yeah, they are. I mean, it's everything, it's basically the foundation. Like every business, everything that you want to grow needs a solid foundation. Like it can like
Yep.
start up from. So that's what it is. So it's like all of your systems, like how are you going to be responding to emails, like your email
Yeah.
system, like that. If I don't know about you, but I feel like I could spend an entire day like just in my inbox, it can really be a time suck. So learning how to manage your emails, and what's your client onboarding workflow? What are your systems for making sure that everybody's getting everything they need at every point in that journey?
Right.
Having that all dialed in, it helps you, it helps your clients. You have to have that figured out. So it also like
Yeah.
the editing and ordering, like all of that is really important too, because that can be a real time suck. And once you have like your system in place, like it just takes your mind from having to think about it to like knowing that, okay, it's one day after my shoot. I know I'm going to be culling and picking out my previews right now, and then those are going to be delivered tomorrow morning. And you just have it all lined up, so it doesn't have to be like take your whole day.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yeah, that's awesome.
specifically with the accounting and the tracking your numbers, I feel like this one's like so important. And it's also, I feel like, the scariest one for so many photographers, because they're like, math, I can't do it. No, I don't want to like help,
Right. That's why I have a camera. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I have a camera. I'm not a mathematician. You don't have to be one. And literally, I am the worst at math. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. But I just want to stress to people like how empowering it is when you do understand what you need to know about what you're looking at in your numbers, and when you understand and you can reconcile your own books, and you can know that, okay, I spent this much in marketing here, I need to like take some out here, you can just balance it all, and it's so empowering. It's like all of a sudden you're the master of your domain, and you're like, okay,
Right.
I'm a boss.
Right. Well, and it does. It opens your eyes to, I think, a ton of opportunities in your business for either increasing profits or decreasing costs. It allows you to really get a much better kind of emotional picture of your value,
Yeah.
of the value that you bring to the table, let alone it just answers questions that you're like, well, how much do I need to charge for this? Somebody just asked me to shoot something that I've never shot before, and I have no idea how much to charge. Well, you
Yeah.
can go to your numbers and you can say, okay, this is how much I need to charge.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's incredibly empowering. For me, there were two moments when really kind of like putting this stuff together in our own business that struck me as like these big light bulb moments. Number one was when I knew my numbers. The first time I knew my numbers and was like, oh my gosh, okay. Number one, it was terrifying. I was like, oh, wait, I'm not making nearly as much money as I thought I was.
Yeah.
But I could see the paths to getting there. And then the second one was when we started doing pre-session consultations and really getting an idea of exactly what we were shooting for during that pre-session consultation. And like that first session that I walked into, knowing exactly what I needed to photograph, I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like you click, 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 click. Wait, I got it all. Like
Nailed
I
it.
can relax now. Like I can actually now I can do that stuff that might not work because I know that I got it all. So anyway, I know that I'm getting off on a tangent, but it's these like these like what road to Damascus moments, right? Where the
Yeah.
scales fall off your eyes. You're like,
You're like, oh
I
my
can see
God.
what's
Yeah.
happening here. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely agree with you on that, that knowing your numbers and having those back end processes in place, like, yeah, that's foundational. Like this is table stakes, guys. We have to have this stuff in place.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
awesome that you're starting with that. And then where do we go from there?
Yeah. Well, one really exciting place that was an aha moment for me, since we're talking about like aha moments, is that once I
Mhm.
had like these back end things like ironed out and straightened out, and I kind of knew my numbers and what, was kind of tracking things, building the business, knowing what I could afford, I was able to really realize that what I can outsource,
Right.
and then
Right.
it's like your whole world opens
Wait.
up even more, and you're like, oh my God, I
Yeah.
don't have to do it all. Like I can like push this to somebody, and then here's how you do it. Exactly. That was
Yep.
like one of my major aha moments in business, is like getting my systems tidy enough so that I could hand them off and trust that
Yep.
they're going to be done. Like it's
Yep.
huge.
Well, and then talk about feeling like, okay, wait, I actually feel like a business owner now. Like
Yeah.
I'm saying, I'm like the person routing things to people, and I wake up and like stuff got done.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
wait,
Without you
this
having to
is
do it.
nuts that I didn't have to do. Yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that is incredibly empowering when it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, yeah, I just send it over to my team. It's fine. Oh,
Yeah.
also, I have a team now. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
And we all just want to do what we love, right? Like that's the goal. And then when you find yourself doing the things that like just take life from you, like you just want to stab yourself in the eye that you have to do it. And you're like, I'm going to
Yep.
watch a movie while I edit because I can't bear to like just edit. Like,
Right.
to like, how can I get through this? Like, work it out, like figure out how to set yourself up so that you can like focus on what you love, which is probably
Yeah.
taking pictures and or maybe marketing or whatever it is that you love, like lights you up. Like set your business up for that, because that's why we're here. That's what we want to do
Yeah.
with our lives, right? So we deserve.
Yeah. That's funny. This has come up so many times over the last few weeks, and I'm sure it's just confirmation bias. Like I'm just looking for it now.
Yeah.
But this concept of, am I growing a business that I want? And does that business align with the life that I want? And
Yeah.
because you can you can really get those out of balance where it's like, yeah, my business is doing amazing, but if it's not bringing the lifestyle that you want, if all you've done is build yourself a job,
Yeah.
then is that really what the whole point was,
Yeah.
and I think it's come up because I live in a camper now and we travel full time, and it really is this like, I love doing one-on-one coaching with people,
Yeah.
but one-on-one coaching while growing our business doesn't get me the lifestyle that I want. It doesn't give me the life I want right now. At least this season of
Yeah.
life is about like spending time with the kids and traveling and seeing a bunch of
Yeah.
stuff. So I love that you look at this as being so interconnected with those types of concepts. Like, look, we're going to talk about that boring, quote unquote, boring stuff, those
Yep.
foundational things that we just have to get in place. But the reason we're talking about it is because when you have these things in place, it allows you to focus on these bigger things. Like, am I building the life that I want? I think it's incredible that you're able to bring that kind of clarity on such an important thing through something that feels so foundational and so, like we call, like we said earlier, table stakes. Like
Yeah.
we just have to do this for business, but
Yeah.
if we can keep in mind that's why we're doing it, all right,
Yeah.
great, yeah, let's power through it.
Yeah.
Plus you get to the sexy stuff, which
Hell
is
yeah.
your marketing and branding and your sales, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely. I think
yeah.
all systems are sexy, and I love that you just said that. Like, people say systems, and you kind of like yawn. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
boring. But no, systems can be sexy,
Yeah.
and they're
Awesome.
sexy because they afford you and provide you that life that you want, right?
Yeah.
Because if you do these things, you can live your dream. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome.
So second system, branding and marketing. I call it marketing magic. So, and
Awesome.
I find branding and marketing really interesting because it's like feels like the biggest mountain to scale, or one of the biggest, a really big mountain to scale, because there's just so many things that you can do. And, you know, if you go down the list of like all the things that we should be doing, it's like people just want to crawl into a little cave and like, no, I'm
Yes.
not going to do anything. Right. I
Yeah.
totally understand that. But you know, when you kind of get an idea for what will work for your business and how to track it and how to like, you know, put your time towards it and like get your system in
Yeah.
place for it, it becomes kind of fun. And you know, I could talk about marketing for days because I just love this kind of stuff. But it can definitely feel like one of the scariest things. So
Yeah.
I kind of break it down into two pieces, like branding and marketing.
Yep.
And once you understand your brand and what your brand's purpose is and how your systems are set up in your brand, it makes the marketing that much easier because you have that system in place. Like,
Yeah.
you know, who you are as a brand, what your morals and aesthetics are, what you're going to serve people with, what your unique value is, like what your message is, what your voice is, like, you know, what you're going to talk about to people. And then you're like, okay, well, now that I know all of that, everything becomes so much more clear.
Yep. Yep. And that's ultimately what we're talking about here is clarity, is you're setting everything up. Like you said, with the back-end systems, it's clarity in your standard operating procedures so that you can hand that stuff over to somebody else. And here it's, well, I know exactly what I need to blog about or tweet about, or nobody's using Twitter, let's be honest, blog about, or, you know, Facebook, or do an Instagram live about, like, because I know exactly what my brand is, what that message I'm trying to get out there is, how I'm different from everybody else in my market. So these things naturally surface. These
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, this is the thing that I need to talk about right now. That's awesome. All right, cool. So branding and marketing, walk me
Yes.
through the differences that you see between those. Because I think a lot of times, honestly, I think branding, marketing, and advertising sometimes just get lumped into this one thing, and we're not really sure where one ends and the next thing begins. So walk me through your take on branding versus marketing, and where do they, like, how do they compare to each other?
Yeah. So to me, branding is more about like your business. It's about like, you know, your position, your unique value, what your promise is. It's about your personality. It's just about like everything that you're going to be presenting to your clients and saying, here, this is what I do. This is what I can do for you. And this is why you want me. Like, this is like, it's like you got your little headdress on and you're like, your feathers are shining and you're like, this is me.
Fantastic.
You know, it's like, it's your brand, it's everything, it's your voice, it's everything. So when you get really clear on that, it helps. And it just makes everything else in your marketing, which I consider all of like your strategy and like the actionable things that you're doing. These are the things that you're going to be working on your social media. You're going to have your Pinterest, your Instagram, your Google all situated. You're going to, you know, have all of the systems in place for your client acquisition and all the strategies that you need for that part of your marketing. Like, how are you going to educate your clients? What's your branding and collateral going to look like? And is it going to align with your brand? And then like, if you're going to have follow-ups, how does that system break down? Are you going to be reaching out to people, you know, with referrals and, you know, to get referrals, or do you have like a system in place for that? Or, you know, it all kind of just, it breathes together, you know, but there are definitely separate pieces. So
Yeah. I like that idea that your brand is essentially, like you said, the headdress. In fact, I think you said that this is me. Yeah. So your brand is the this is me, and your marketing is essentially the stuff that you're putting out there to draw attention to the, like, look at the color of this feather, and look at the, you know, I don't know what this is. I'm not sure what I'm doing here, but, you know, drawing attention to the individual parts of that brand in a way that ideally shows them off as benefits to the potential client, or at least gets people off the fence. Either I love this brand or I don't like this brand, because that's really all personally, that's really all I care about, is like, make a choice. Either yes or no. Do you like this or not? You don't like it? Okay, that's fine. There are plenty of other options. You do like it? Great. Come with me. Let's go do cool things. You know? So yeah, awesome. All right. So we have back-end systems, we have marketing and branding, and I love how you make that all about systems as well. It's not just like this big, well, like mountain, like you said, it's not this big mountain of like marketing and branding. Okay,
Yeah.
now we're going to marketing and branding. No, we're going to set up systems that allow us to accomplish these things. And then from there, my baby, my
Your
heart,
baby. I know, right? Mine
sales,
too.
right?
Yeah, sales.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And if like social strategy and like marketing is like the mountain to climb, like sales is like the scary monster in the room, right? I feel
Right.
like that's
Right.
how it is in the photography industry. People are so scared to sell, and they have this idea that it's just going to be so hard, and they don't want to be salesy, and it's like gives
Yeah.
them like the sweats just thinking about it.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be. It's like the biggest myth ever, because all you're doing is assuring that you're serving your clients,
Yes.
and not abandoning them after the session. And that's really, you're just providing one more level of service to your clients. So
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
really,
And
yeah.
yep. Yeah. We talk about how IPS should stand for incredibly personal service,
I
not
love
in-person
that.
sales, because that's really what we're talking about here. This is what service looks like. And especially like, I, I don't know, man, I've been around the block now, but like, I feel like maybe 10-ish years ago, and maybe it's not as big now, but 10-ish years ago, the word boutique was being thrown around all the time. It was, oh, you need to build a boutique brand. You need to build a boutique brand. And when you look at definitionally what that means, like that's what we're talking about here. This is boutique. We're crafting every experience around each and every individual client so that they get exactly what they want, nothing more, but also nothing less.
Yeah.
And that's what, this is what service really truly looks like. Because like you said, we're not just dropping the ball right at the end of the process. We're not saying like, here are your files, good luck figuring out what to do with them.
Yeah.
We're saying, all right, well, my job's not done until you actually have something to show for this time that we spent together. So
Yeah.
that I can go on for
I know.
days on sales. I just love how eye to eye we are on sales and its real role within a business. It's not just to provide income. It's absolutely to provide income. It's
Yeah.
not just to provide income. When done properly, this is how you've served your client well. Awesome. Okay, so how do you, like, what type of sales process are you walking people through and helping them set up?
In this coaching program.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody's sales system looks a little bit different. Like I do in-person sales and I do guided sales. I call it guided because as we learned through COVID, like virtual is totally possible. And I learned, which almost surprised me a little bit, that I can conduct a virtual appointment almost as good as I can an in-person appointment. So,
Yep.
as long as, because I've done all of the work beforehand, the clients know that they're buying something. I know what they want to buy. And so it becomes much more easier when you have every system in place. So the big three things that I focus on in my sales strategy is making sure like the client education is there, and that, and we talked about like how things bridge to other parts of the system and the systems, and they all work together. Client education starts with every phase of your system. It starts even well before the client even inquires. Like they're learning about how you're teaching them what you're doing, in your social media, you're teaching them on your website, you're showing them exactly what you want them to do, so that by the time they inquire, it's already sold. They know that they're going to buy something from you.
Yep.
You just have to work with them to figure out what it is they're going to buy, and then hold their hand through it and get them to buy the thing that's going to make them the happiest. Right. So, you're just serving them from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
And then of course, we need to have a really good grasp on like what they're going to buy. So I call them prosperous products. Like what are the products that you're going to sell that are going to serve your clients? And I feel like this can be kind of a sticky area, because I have seen photographers get so excited about all the bazillion products out there, and they're like,
Yes,
I'm going to sell this, and I'm going to
I
sell
need
this.
to sell them all. Yeah, I got to
to
collect
sell
them all, right? Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie, like I look back, I actually saved my first price menu because it's so horrific. And I
Right.
literally had everything that the lab sold on it. Like I was
Uh-huh.
like, oh, I've got boxes and I've got like these coaster things and I've got like these bigger boxes.
Keychains,
Oh my
mouse
God.
pads. Yeah.
It was so bad. It
Yeah.
was so
You're
bad.
like, no, no. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, like I'm gonna segue for a second here, but this very price menu that I'm talking about, like I had a client. This is like my ideal client that I was trying to reach. She was in my studio. I was showing her my price menu and she mocked me sarcastically, thinking that I may not catch on, but I'm not dumb, to her
Mm,
husband in front of me. And they totally made me like it was like the blinders are off that, I was like, aha, it was like,
yep.
ah. It was so
Right.
sad. But I realized what I wanted my brand to be was not showing up in my marketing. It was not
Yes.
aligning. So it was like, that was my
Yep.
big moment to be like, okay, this is who I'm trying to reach. This is what I'm showing them, not the same.
Yes.
So I really ironed
Yes.
everything out and, figured out what products people actually want to buy and what
Yep.
they're going to actually want to spend their money on. And then, how am I going to price those products so that it's profitable,
Yep.
and that it's going to be, a win-win for everybody. So that
Yep.
is why I call them prosperous products, because,
Yeah.
it's what
Yeah.
people want and it's what will ultimately help your business as well.
Yeah. And what I like about this is that, for people who are listening and they think like, oh my gosh, that's terrifying. Like somebody called her out on that in a sales meeting and now I'm scared. Like now I don't want to do this, right? The point here is that Megan already went through that for you.
Exactly.
I like to joke around that we were their canary in a coal mine. It's like we already went down in there. We found all the trouble spots for
Yes.
you. We've already made all the mistakes, plus probably more than you would make. And we figured out how to avoid them so that you don't end up in a situation like that. So
Ex-
yeah, it's those moments. Yeah, those moments. Those are tuition moments, right? Like, okay, I
Yeah.
just paid some tuition. That got
Yep.
it. Learned. Lesson learned.
Yep. Yep.
We've always said that you could go through our wedding contract and point to specific clauses, and we could name the wedding that they were added because of.
That's so
Like,
funny.
yeah, this
Yeah.
one was because of so and so. This one was because of so and so.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
yeah, the clause that says like, yes, you have to feed us.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh my
that's
God.
because like somebody tried not to. Sorry, guys, we've been with you for 12 hours today. But
Yeah, the whole like like I had everything that you're talking about. I call these my Groupon years because
perfect, perfect.
when I was switching from weddings to portraits, I was so burnt out on weddings. I'd done them for
Yeah.
almost 10 years. I was like, okay, I am done. I did this in 2008, 2009, which is like, think back, it's like the worst time in the
Mm,
world really to make any kind of big business change. But I was just like, I couldn't do it anymore. And so I decided no more weddings, 2009, no more weddings. I'm like, I'm doing portraits. So Groupon was kind of just becoming hot. I did a Groupon. I was the second person in Minneapolis to do a Groupon. I sold 500 in 8 hours. And if you do the
oh,
math on that, like
ouch.
I was sweating and I kept calling them. The number kept going up and I'm like, are you sure? Like, I mean, like I have to do these sessions. Like, can we should we pull it? Should we stop it? Like, and they're like, they were all excited too, because they had never sold that much, for photography. So they're like, no, let's just keep
Mm.
going. I'm like, oh, okay.
Like somebody has to actually take these photos
I
and then
know.
do things
So
with them. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. 2 years. I was booked out for 2 years solid. And I had to put every system in place in that 2 years and learn every hard lesson of that's how all of this was like kind of like created, like, just through that, like school of
Oh my
hard knocks
gosh.
of like
Yeah.
being forced to like iron it out so that I could have a life and I could like, not
Yeah.
be like in the hospital with like a broken back. But yeah, I mean, I shot hairless cats. I shot motorcycles. I shot like I was driving like to Timbuktu for like 3 hours to shoot like a 40-minute session and then getting $300 for it. It was
Yep.
ridiculous. So,
Yep.
yep, you learn, you
Tuition.
live and learn.
Tuition. Yep.
Tuition. I love
Oh
that.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't even imagine
Yeah.
you go into a situation like that and you're like, oh man, I hope I sell a few.
Yeah.
And then like I would imagine there's this window of like sheer excitement where you're like, yes, it's working. And then that window starts closing as the
Yeah.
number goes higher and higher. And you're like, no, it's still working. Like
I
it
know.
has to stop.
It
Yeah.
was
There had to have been
terrifying.
that like a few minutes though where you were like, oh, this is amazing. This is exactly what I wanted. Wait, no, no, no.
I
Yeah.
exactly.
No, that's
You nailed
terrifying.
it. That's exactly how it went.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see how systems and processes would
Systems
become
and processes.
so incredibly important to you and how you'd
Well,
need to
yeah.
figure them out very quickly. What I
Yeah.
hear though is that these systems and processes then are battle tested. Like
Yeah.
these are these are processes that have seen more clients than most of us will photograph in a career, or at least hopefully more, because
Yeah.
I would much rather people listen to this shoot a tenth of that while making four times as much.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
Well,
yeah.
and
Oh
that's
my
funny.
gosh.
They are totally battle tested like that. I love that. I'm gonna totally use that, by the way.
Perfect.
But what I really learned and that what those years taught me was that like I really needed a solid sales strategy because thank my lucky stars, I did not give away everything in that session fee for those Groupons because
Yep.
otherwise it would have been I would have been tanked
Yeah.
and I would have just been, that $15,000 I got from Groupon would not have like stretched over 2 years, right? So
Right.
that
Yeah.
thankfully people did sell, they did buy something. I was able to sell something, but I realized like the major holes in my system, like it was
Yeah.
not going to be sustainable. So as soon as I was done with those Groupons, kind of also in the process of them, I was like ironing out, okay, this is how I want it to flow. This is what I want to sell. This is what I need to do
Yeah.
if I want to be at this level, if I want to make this much, if I want to have this life. Like it all just kind of like escalated.
Yep.
And yeah, so
Yeah. I mean,
the
it's like being thrown into the deep end, right?
yeah,
Like, yeah, sink or swim.
yep,
So
yep,
yeah,
sink or
yeah.
swim.
That's shoo. I
Yeah,
can't even imagine that. That's like
yeah,
I'm gonna have like anxiety nightmares about that tonight. Uh, Just watching my Groupon number go up and be like,
yeah. You don't know
uh,
what you're capable of until you are forced to do it. So
right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So let's talk about this course and coaching program that you have coming up. I'm gonna let you say the name because I love this name and it just makes me
All
so
right.
happy.
Yeah. The name of the coaching program is Strategic AF.
What does that stand for, Megan? Autofocus, right? Autofocus.
Autofocus or
It's
yeah,
autofocus. Yeah.
strategic. Can I swear on this? Can I?
Sure. Yeah.
Strategic as fuck. Yes,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Because that's really what we're talking about here is
Yes.
like building all of these strategies, these systems and strategies into your business so that you can approach it
Yes.
from that standpoint. I have to be completely honest with you. When you sent over the name of it, I like cheered a little. I was like, yes, that is the perfect name for this course. It is literally the perfect name for this course. It
I
makes me
love
so
that.
happy.
I love
So
that.
excellent. So it is structured around these three pillars, right? These three
Yeah.
sets of systems. Walk us through kind of what the course looks like. What do you cover? How do you cover it? What order? All of that fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So the course is 7 weeks long. There we spend 2 weeks on each of the topics. So, and we go through
Nice.
all of the systems. So 2 weeks on the back end basics, like how are you going to set up? What kind of systems does your specific business need to be set up to run like a well-oiled machine? And how do you set them up? So we talk about, the first week is just talking about all the systems that make up the back end basics. And the second week is getting strategic about them and like actually creating the systems and showing people
Awesome.
how to create the systems to have your back end like all set up. Then we talk about the marketing and branding. We talk about like why, what the tenets of a good brand are and what the strategies for good marketing are and how to implement all of those in a way that's going to make it feel like it's not going to drag down your entire week, but
Right.
just feel like one little to do that you have for each month, So,
Yep.
and then we go through the sales strategy and talk about like what makes up a good sales strategy and how do you implement it? Like, how do you sell with integrity? What does
Yeah.
that look like? How does that kind of fit into your overall strategy and the overall game plan of just serving your clients and, running a great business?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the last week, the 7th week, we go over like systems failures. Like, where do these things fall off track? How do we get our mindset around them so that we can remember like the golden pie in the sky of just like the life of our dreams? And that's what we're aiming for. And so just keeping our mind kind of wrapped around that, and then knowing that things will come up and we'll have to like pivot. And how do we pivot, and how do we make them work for us? And just so that we can kind of like, once you have it set up, it's so crazy because it's just literally like the sky is the limit. Like, there's no more bar stopping you if you're doing like shoot and burn or like something that's just like, or you're just like scattered because you have so much to do, you can't do anything, you get paralyzed. So that's the course. I'm super excited.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that you add that 7th week on, because I feel like so many courses just assume perfection. Like, oh, I taught you this and it's just going to work. Like, don't worry about it. It's just going to work. When in reality, some stuff just doesn't work for some people in some markets. And to be able to point those out and say, okay, if this, then that, basically, if this happens, then here's how to approach that. I think that that's a very realistic way of saying, like, look, these things are gonna, these things could happen to you. It may be that everything you learned exactly how I taught it works perfectly right out of the box. Awesome.
Yeah.
But in case it doesn't, here, in case of emergency, break glass on week 7.
Exactly.
I think of one of the members we had. She went through all of our stuff and like crickets. This was a really, really busy photographer, and she went from working as a shoot and burn photographer, working nonstop, to like her business just dried up. She wasn't getting inquiries. She wasn't like, the inquiries that she did get weren't converting. And she called me up and she's like, Chris, this isn't working. Like, I did everything as I'm supposed to do. And I remember we figured out over maybe a 20-minute phone call, this one tweak that she should make to her business. And it was I can't even remember what it was now. It's something to do with how she was showing her pricing. And we said, okay, so clearly the way that we talked about it doesn't work for your business. Let's figure out what does. Let's test this, and we'll test this. And she went on to do $150,000 in profit in her first 9 months. And I'm like, and it was just that one little tweak, So point is that I love that you're addressing that stuff right off the bat, because it's these little things that you say, like, okay, if that's not working, make these tweaks. If you can do these things, then knowing how to think about and how to approach those problems could be the difference between nothing and more than you'd ever imagine.
Yeah.
So I love that. I love that, Meghan. I love that you're doing that.
Good.
Excellent. So, okay, when does this course, what's the structure of the course? Is it all online, video based? Like, how does that work?
It's a live course. Yeah, we're doing it live.
Sweet.
So I know, which is awesome. I'm super excited about it. We're going to have weekly calls. We're going to have audits. I'm going to do like an audit over everybody's business, essentially, including their website and, everything. So just kind of see if there are any holes that I see that's going to, iron out some of, just kind of prevent some of the problems from the start. And then, so 7 weeks, call a week, audit, Q&As. Yeah, it's going to be pretty hands-on. I'm really excited to just like get in there and help people like really structure things so that they can shoot for the stars.
Yeah. And like, I mean, going back to what I just talked about, having that direct feedback straight from the source, straight from the person who has the battles to go with those battle tested processes. That's you can't put a price tag on that, on being able to just talk directly to you and be like, hey, I tried this thing that you said, and here's what happened. How do I do this different? to be able to get that straight from you and have those conversations directly, that's priceless.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Yay. Great.
Okay, so this goes down on August the 8th.
August 8th. Yep. August 8th, the course starts. So the
Yep.
doors for enrollment open on the 27th.
Okay, excellent.
Of
July
July.
27th.
Yep.
July 27th. Doors will open. And then how often will you run this program?
I'm probably going to run it 2 or 3 times a year.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
And whether it
obviously,
turns,
go ahead.
I was going to say, whether it turns into like a course versus a coaching program,
Right.
I'll kind of see. But for now, I think I'll do at least 2 or 3 coaching programs. Yeah.
Yeah, because clearly you can't, do these all the time because you're doing them live and you have your own business to run.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. So where can someone go to learn more and kind of dig into the details on this coaching program?
Yeah. theartofthesale.com/strategic AF.
Perfect. Perfect. theartofthesale.com. And we'll put that in, we'll drop a link in there for this post and on the podcast and all of that. But theartofthesale.com/strategic AF. I'm so happy about that. That just makes me so happy to even say. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today and to
Thank you
kind
so
of
much,
break
Chris.
down your thoughts on just photography business and the whole business side of this. I just love talking with people who see these processes the way that I do. They see these for how they allow you to serve your client better, but also serve your family better. And that these things can do both. And in fact, if you're doing things right, they will do both. So anyway, I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. So much.
All right. So theartofthesale.com/strategic AF. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, right.
Excellent. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks.